You were taught in school that Neanderthals were primitive, that they were less intelligent, that they vanished because we were superior. But that story is wrong. Their brains were larger than ours. They were stronger. They hunted massive animals. They survived the Ice Age for hundreds of thousands of years. So how did these superhumans disappear? What could erase a species so perfectly adapted to its environment? The answer isn't simple, and it isn't comfortable. Neanderthals didn't vanish overnight. They didn't collapse in some dramatic extinction event. There was no single catastrophe that wiped them from the Earth. Instead, their disappearance was slow, quiet, almost invisible. Neanderthals lived across Europe and parts of Western Asia for over 400,000 years. They endured brutal glacial cycles. They mastered fire. They crafted sophisticated stone tools. They buried their dead, sometimes with what appears to be symbolic intent. This wasn't a mindless species. They cared. They adapted. They survived. Then, around 60,000 years ago, we arrived. Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa, entering lands Neanderthals had dominated for hundreds of thousands of years. And for a long time, we didn't replace them. We overlapped them. We hunted the same animals, competed for the same caves, sought shelter from the same storms. But there were crucial differences. Neanderthals were built for power. Stocky bodies, short limbs, wide rib cages, perfect for conserving heat in freezing climates. They were ambush hunters, lethal at close range. They thrived in dense forests, where prey could be approached from cover. We were built for endurance. Longer legs, narrower bodies, efficient cooling systems, designed for persistence hunting, chasing prey across vast distances until exhaustion took over. There was a hidden biological disadvantage: energy cost. Neanderthals were incredibly muscular and built for cold climates, but to maintain their large bodies and generate enough heat in freezing conditions, they may have needed as much as 4,000 to 5,000 calories per day. Early Homo sapiens likely survived on far less, closer to 2,000 to 2,500 calories. In times of abundance, that difference didn't matter, but during harsh winters or periods of scarce prey, it became critical. Between 45,000 and 40,000 years ago, Europe entered a period of severe climatic instability. Temperatures swung violently, forests began to retreat, dense woodlands gave way to open steppe and cold tundra. Trees disappeared, cover vanished. The landscape became wide, flat, exposed. Neanderthals were powerful, but power needs proximity. In forests, they could stalk. In open tundra, there was nowhere to hide. Their stocky builds, once ideal, made long-distance travel more energy costly. Shorter legs meant slower movement across vast plains. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens could move farther, faster in larger groups. Climate change didn't just reshape the land, it reshaped the food chain. As forests shrank, prey patterns shifted. Large herbivores migrated unpredictably. Hunting now demanded flexibility, new targets, new tools, new strategies. Flexibility requires communication, and it requires networks. Archaeological evidence suggests Homo sapiens formed vast social webs stretching across hundreds of kilometers. We exchanged tools, shared innovations, spread knowledge rapidly. If one group developed a better weapon, it traveled. Neanderthal groups were smaller, more isolated. Isolation limits innovation, it slows adaptation, it reduces resilience. And when climate shifted, isolation became dangerous. Around 40,000 years ago, Europe experienced sudden cold pulses. Ecosystems destabilized. To survive, you needed mobility. You needed numbers. You needed diversity. Neanderthals had little of these. At their peak, their total population may have numbered only in the tens of thousands, scattered and fragmented. Small populations are fragile. One harsh winter, one failed hunt, one ecological shock and decline accelerates. There was another invisible pressure: disease. When Homo sapiens entered Eurasia, we didn't just bring tools, fire, and new hunting strategies. We brought microbes. Viruses and bacteria that had evolved with African populations for tens of thousands of years may have been completely unfamiliar to Neanderthal immune systems. In large populations, diseases spread, but some individuals survive and pass on resistance. Neanderthals didn't have that advantage. Their groups were small, isolated, and genetically less diverse, making them far more vulnerable to sudden outbreaks. A single new pathogen could have wiped out entire communities before they even understood what was happening. And, unlike climate change or competition, disease is invisible. You can't fight what you can't see. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We may have helped push them out. Competition for territory can turn violent. There is evidence of trauma on Neanderthal skeletons. We know prehistoric humans fought. Were there conflicts? Likely. Were there massacres? Possibly. But it wasn't a single war. It was pressure. Constant pressure. Environmental stress. Population imbalance. Resource competition. Genetic dilution, layer by layer. Neanderthals were not weak and they were not unintelligent. For hundreds of thousands of years, they survived and adapted to the brutal conditions of Ice Age Europe. But evolution doesn't reward strength alone. It rewards adaptability under pressure. Evolution created a world changing faster than Neanderthal biology and social structure could adjust to. They were perfectly adapted to a stable Ice Age, but the Ice Age stopped being stable, and in a rapidly shifting world, survival belongs to the species that can adapt the fastest. There's another possibility T&E rarely discussed in school. They didn't entirely disappear. Genetic studies reveal that most people of European and Asian descent today carry between 1% and 2% Neanderthal DNA. That means we didn't simply replace them. We met them, we mated with them, we had children with them. Some Neanderthal traits still shape us, influencing our immune systems, skin biology, and even certain behavioral tendencies. So perhaps extinction isn't the right word. Perhaps absorption is right word. If one population is larger, more connected, and more adaptable to change, then over generations, the smaller one fades into the larger gene pool. Not with violence, but with time. Around the time Neanderthals disappear from the fossil record, we observe an unprecedented acceleration of symbolic culture in Homo sapiens, cave art, beads, musical instruments, until one day there were no more purely Neanderthal communities left. The last known Neanderthals lived in southern Spain around 40,000 years ago, and then the record goes silent, not with a bang, but with absence. So what erased them? Not inferiority, not stupidity, not weakness. Neanderthals were powerful, intelligent, resilient. They survived ice ages we can barely imagine. What they faced wasn't a single disaster. They faced us. A species wired for cooperation at massive scales, for rapid innovation, for migration, for expansion. And in evolution, survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable at the right moment in time. Neanderthals were masters of their world, but the world changed. In the end, they didn't completely vanish. They became part of us. You carry their DNA. Their story lives in your cells. The next time someone says they were primitive, remember this. They ruled Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. We've only been here for a fraction of that, and survival is never a straight line. It's a fragile balance between biology, environment, and chance.